Welcome to the Monday, April 24th edition of LR-Mania Reviews, and today I will be reviewing two things off of the WWE Network. The first review will be a review of WWE 24, and today I'm reviewing the first episode, which aired in February of 2015. How the show works is every Monday in which there was not a WWE pay-per-view the night before, I will be reviewing two things off the WWE Network. Right now I'm starting two series. My reviews of the NXT TakeOver shows and my reviews of WWE 24, which is a show exclusively on the WWE Network. And right now, it will be a review of WWE 24, Episode 1, Wrestlemania 30 in New Orleans. And the second one will be a review of NXT ArRival, the first official special event that was not called TakeOver. I was really looking forward to reviewing the show, mainly because I really enjoy WrestleMania 30, and this show is basically the footage was taken during WrestleMania 30 weekend, and basically the event itself. The beginning of the episode is very a different tone from what the rest of the show is going to be. It shows The Undertaker collapsing, and it shows Vince McMahon yelling. A very scary moment for real, and it was actually a really good way to start off the episode. But then, of course, it goes 24 hours earlier, and it's a much different vibe. One thing I really enjoy is that they showed the WWE production crew, which sets up the stage for WrestleMania. One thing I really like is how they were explaining how each year they do something different. They sit at the 50-yard line of the stadium and decide on what to build. This year, in 2014, they had to focus more on the event than the city. So the year before that was New York, which I thought had a great set. They had the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, and the Brooklyn Bridge. Well, here it's WrestleMania 30. Although New Orleans would be really cool to set up a stage, it would look like New Orleans. You have so much to do. You have Bourbon Street, you have the Mardi Gras, you have just thousands countless different ways to set up a huge stage. And I think this year in 2018, the WrestleMania 34, it'll be really, really cool because it'll be a New Orleans-based stage. But here they couldn't do it because it was WrestleMania 30, so they had to focus more on WrestleMania, which was the 30th anniversary, which was much bigger than anything that the city of New Orleans could have. So it was a really cool how they explained it and how they come up with a set every year. Another huge part of this episode is they focus heavily on the beginning of Connor, which is a very sad story. Of course, anyone who follows WWE over the past few years knows he was a kid who was very sick. He had brain cancer, and the WWE invited him to a Raw, and then of course they were really inspired by him. They loved the kid a lot, and they invited him to WrestleMania, and he was a huge fan of Daniel Bryan. A very sad story, obviously. Showing him with Daniel Bryan was really, it was really sad to see. And Daniel Bryan was his hero. They showed him with John Cena, with AJ Lee, and with Batista, and they showed him with Big Show and Sheamus, with Stephanie, with Triple H. They showed when they had him pin Triple H. That was really cute. So very very sad story. So they showed the Hall of Fame. Obviously, that was probably the best Hall of Fame I've ever seen. The speeches were all excellent. Warrior's speech was great. Diamond Dallas Page and Jake Roberts' speeches are really good that year when DDP inducted him. Scott Hall, I loved the last line, of course. Bad times don't last, bad guys do. Hall of Fame was great that year, in my opinion, one of the best Hall of Fames. And obviously a very sad story yet again, with the Ultimate Warrior passing a couple days later. They're focusing a lot on Triple H's entrance, which I thought of all his many WrestleMania entrances, this is the best, the one at WrestleMania 30. And of course, a big part of that entrance were Charlotte, Sasha Banks, and Alexa Bliss, who all three of them played servants to his king. And I thought all three of them were really good here, and they really show how far they've come since they started off just doing his entrances, and 3 years later, they're all at WrestleMania. Another segment of the show was Hogan, Austin, and Rock, which were all on the show, and of course in the opening segment, a great opening segment. They showed them all hanging out backstage. That was cool. And one thing I noticed, they also showed Shawn Michaels talking to them backstage. And one thing I picked up on was in the background you can see John Cena and the Wyatt family going over their match. I thought that was kind of pretty funny, kind of a little blurb, if you will. They really focus a lot on Charlotte, Sasha, and Alexa there, and it was actually a really nice, sweet moment seeing them all get their first WrestleMania moment, if you will. They've all all three of them have already competed at multiple ones. Alexa won, but Charlotte and Sasha have already competed at 2 WrestleManias against each other. So, nice moment. All three of them looked great. I think Alexa and Sasha are the 2 hottest women on the roster. And worth noting, there is a lot of rumors that there's heat between Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss. You don't really see that here. Maybe their heat started after this, but you don't really notice it. I don't know if there's legitimate heat there, but it's a pretty big rumor on the internet, so I thought I'd acknowledge it so far. But you don't really get that vibe watching them here, all three of them with Charlotte. So another big part of the show is Daniel Bryan. Of course, this was the Daniel Bryan show, WrestleMania 30. This is when he won the title in the main event. So he has a big part on the show. They show him and Brie in the back. I might sound like a bit of a dick for pointing this out, but they showed Hogan and Warrior backstage, kind of embracing and bearing the hatchet. Man, it looked so fake. It looked just like for the cameras, man. It looked really, really phony. Another big part of the show is, of course, Brock Lesnar breaking the streak, and of course, seeing that streak end is still shocking. 3 years later, it still gives me goosebumps, and of course, the fans' reaction is it's priceless. I had the same reaction. I had the same reaction as the guy who had his eyes wide open in the front row. So, yeah, and they also really like how they played the Undertaker's theme on the piano. Very somber moment, very well done, and a very well put together scene, and of course, it's just such a shocking moment. Of course, they go back and they show the Undertaker collapsing. They showed it in the beginning of the show. They show it again. I really think Undertaker should have just retired after the show. He was in good health. And, his next 3 WrestleManias, the match with Bray Wyatt was okay. The match with Shane wasn't very good except for the big spot. And the match with Roman Reigns, I did not care for. I really think he should have just retired after the show. And, yeah, it's shocking. Looking at the conditions in this show, it's shocking that he went on for another 3 WrestleManias. Daniel Bryan, of course, getting his big WrestleMania moment is awesome. He's just an amazing wrestler. Seeing him get his big moment was really, really great. And I like how they really show what WrestleMania 30 was Wrestlemania, which was Daniel Bryan's WrestleMania. They, of course, show Daniel Bryan celebrating his victory with Connor, which, of course, is very sad. And, of course, you can see the words he's telling Connor, very inspirational words, and a very, very sad moment to see. And not necessarily sad right here, but, of course, what happened. And it brings a tear to your eye. I thought the show was great. Really enjoyed almost every second of it. Very a whole bunch of emotions. It hits you. It's a happy show. It's sad. It's just an emotional roller coaster to watch a show. It's really draining for only 30 minutes. And I thought WWE 24 episode 1, the WrestleMania 30 show, great show. And I think probably still the best 24 episode they've ever produced. I think another thing that helps the show is WrestleMania 30 was a very memorable WrestleMania, one of the most talked about WrestleManias in years, and I think people talk about that show still more than they talk about the previous 3 WrestleManias. So WrestleMania 30, I think, is like WrestleMania 3, WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 17, one of those WrestleManias people are never going to forget and always talk about, and it's such a great show, and this was a great episode. They show everything. They show, sad parts, Connor, and then, of course, the Ultimate Warrior passing away around the same time. They show the Undertaker streak ending, Hogan, Austin, Rock in the back, Daniel Bryan having his big moment, Triple H in his big entrance, with Sasha, Alexa, and Charlotte, Bray Wyatt's big entrance. It's a really, really great show, and it's about a great show, which makes a great pay-per-view of WrestleMania, which makes the show really, really good. And I thought the first show of WWE 24 was great, and it's going to be hard to top it. Now let's get on to NXT ArRival. So NXT ArRival opens up with Triple H introducing the show, and in the first match, it was Sami Zayn versus Cesaro. And I thought this match was great. I loved it. By far the best match on the show, and the problem was this was the first match. Nothing on the show could even come close to this, but this was so great that it really elevated the show, even though no other matches were as good. This was great. The match, it started off really with Cesaro dominating. He had a couple cool spots. One spot in which Cesaro reverses 2 Sami Zayn signature moves, such as that the move he does in between the ropes and the ring post when he does a DDT. Instead, Cesaro catches him with a European uppercut. I thought that was awesome. And I really liked when he reverses the springboard moonsault Sami always does when he catches him and then gives him a running power slam onto the stage. I thought that was awesome. And of course, when they get back in the ring, they have a whole bunch of back and forth. That was when the match really picked up into high gear, and it ruled. This match was great. There was a Hurricanrana from the top rope, and Sam reversed into Hurricanrana from the top rope, which was awesome. You had the European uppercuts, Cesaro giving him multiple European uppercuts, which just looked brutal. Those look really painful. And, of course, I love the ending in which Cesaro goes over, which, as he should have at the time, he really needed to go over. And I like how at the end, they kind of, have the good sportsmanship at the end in which Cesaro picks up Sammy, hugs him, and of course they show sign of respect. Very ROH-esque, as this is really what NXT was trying to be. And I really, really thought they tore the hose down, and they set a bar that no one else could come close to. But they, just this show was really worth watching just for this match. And these two, both of them are awesome. I really wish they would have better things to do on the main roster. But nothing else I can say. This was a really, really great match. The next match was Mojo Rawley and CJ Parker. It was just a showcase for Mojo Rawley. He's on the main roster now. It took him about 2.5 years. There's nothing to him really. I don't mind him. I don't hate him. I know a lot of people really don't like Mojo. I think he's okay. It's just there's just nothing to him, in my opinion. I think he's just not very good. He hasn't developed, and here you can still see. He's just a guy. I mean, there's just nothing to him, in my opinion. I know he has a relationship with Ron Gronkowski. They're good friends. That would probably, that gave him a push, but I mean, there's nothing to him. And I think CJ Parker obviously is released. His gimmick was just terrible, and there's nothing to him at all. And he was fired, I think, 6 months later. Next was the tag belts, Ascension against Too Cool. One thing I noticed, Connor barely tagged into this match. I think that's because he is terrible. He is awful. And I think they hit him. Victor is okay, but this gimmick, it changed heavily on the main roster. It really wasn't too bad when you watch it here, but I think Connor's a shitty worker and Victor is just average. There's nothing to these guys. These guys will be released very soon. Ascension sucks, but it was cool seeing Too Cool back. Both of them looked great here. Scotty and Grandmaster, both of them looked awesome. I was really surprised that Brian Christopher really got his shit together, because he was really bad. He was really addicted on some drugs and some alcohol at the time. So it was cool seeing him back. But other than the match itself, it was just not very good. It's probably one of the worst matches on the show. It was not good because it was just it was very slow. And I think it's better they keep Connor on the apron because he sucks. So, Paige and Emma's next. They had Stephanie cut a promo. They still use the word diva. Thankfully, it only took 2 years. That thing is over. One thing I like about Emma and Paige is their personalities are completely different. I like how they're complete opposites of one another. The problem is Emma's gimmick is terrible. I like Emma, and hopefully she does better on the main roster, but her gimmick is terrible. And Paige, on the other hand, she's obviously the recent things that have happened to her, she's probably not going to be around for much longer. But it's kind of sad watching this. These two actually predated the Four Horsewomen, but they're the Four Horsewomen have completely better. You have Charlotte, Sasha, Bayley, Becky, and of course then you have Alexa Bliss coming up. They're trying to push Nia Jax, but these two really, in ways, kicked off the whole women's revolution. Paige and Emma had a good match, not a great match. I think the reason why when I was watching this back, the first time I saw this, I really, really liked it. Now I watch it back, and I think it's good. But I think it's because the women have had so many matches after this NXT that blew this away. But for its time, I guess the Divas division was at such a low. The bar was so low that this match looks like a classic. But overall, it's still a decent match, but not anything special. Paige won. I think the finish of the match, the first time we really got to see her finisher, made it look elevated the match. So I'd say it was a good match, but not anything, not as good as I remember it being. But still definitely, for its time, a really memorable match because it really was the start of the whole women's revolution. I liked at the end how they had the two of them hug it out, kind of like they had with Cesaro and Sami Zayn. Both feuds ended the same way. These were both long-standing feuds in NXT, and I like how at the end, they show respect at the end and end both feuds on the show. So I thought that worked well. And I thought they did well here. The woman. They had the screwaway segment. I guess it was just a kill time in which Rusev killed Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze, but I guess it was just a kill time. Then the main event, which was Neville and Bo Dallas in the ladder match. They had Shawn Michaels introduce the match before, and overall, the match, they had Adrian Neville and Bo Dallas. They were hyping it up to be really special. It was a very safe match. They didn't hurt each other. Again, it is developmental. It's not WrestleMania. You don't want to kill each other, but they had a safe match, not above today's standards. So it was a good old school throwback match, similar to early day ladder matches, not over the top, and it was a good match, not a great match. And of course, you have the end, Neville winning, John Cena endorses him. And I like the ending with Neville. Neville winning at the end was good. And overall, it was a good show. I enjoyed NXT ArRival. Not the best show they ever had, but was a good opening show for the WWE Network.